In this video, we'll walk you through the steps of completing and uploading CSV files to create teacher and student accounts in Literably for your school. We encourage you to first take a look at the directions in this article below this video so that you have an idea of what the different steps entail. Once you do, you can use this video as a visual guide for how to complete the steps. The very first thing you will need to do is to download the two rostering files, teachers.csv and students.csv, from Part A of this Help Center article. I'm going to do this by clicking on the links to download these files. I'm also going to create a folder on my computer to save these files in, since I will need to use these same files again if I need to make any rostering changes in the future. If your district used Literably as part of a free trial and want to preserve students' trial data, or if you're considering moving over to Clever or ClassLink in the future, please take a closer look at the relevant info in Part A of the rostering article. Now that you've downloaded and saved your two CSV files, let's get to work filling them out. We'll start with the teacher file. I've opened up the teacher CSV file using Microsoft Excel. In row 1, you'll see that there are headers in columns A through G. Please don't remove or make changes to this header row or add any rows above it. In this file, you should include every teacher, administrator, and staff member at your school who will be using Literably. Let's now fill in all the required information for a teacher. In column A, I need to put in the teacher ID. This is the unique ID that is associated with the teacher in your student information system. It's very important that you always use the same teacher ID for a particular teacher each time you submit this rostering file. Next, I'm going to enter the teacher's title, which in this case is Doctor. In column C, I'm going to enter the teacher's first name. In column D, I'll enter their last name. In column E, I'm going to enter the teacher's email address. This will also be used as their username for logging into Literably. In column F, I'm going to assign a password to the teacher. They will have the option of changing the password later on from their account. All of the columns I've just completed are required. The last column, column G, is not required, but I'm going to fill it out in this case. Dr. Dumbledore is the principal of this school, so I'm going to put yes for school admin. This will give him school administrator privileges in Literably, which will allow him to view the dashboards of all teachers at the school, as well as run school-level data exports. Often, schools will also give school admin access to reading specialists or special education teachers who work with students across different classrooms. Great. Now that I've filled out the info for Dr. Dumbledore, I'm going to add the rest of the teacher's information onto this spreadsheet. Notice that all teachers have their unique teacher IDs, and some have been given school admin privileges. Once I'm done, I will double-check the information and then save the file as a CSV. Let's move on now to the student file. When I open this file, I see again a header row spanning columns A through L. Just like in the teacher file, please do not make any changes to this header row. In this file, you will want to include all students who will be using Literably. It might be helpful to first export the data you need from your student information system and then copy and paste this information into the file. Now let's fill out the data for a sample student. In column A, I'm going to enter the student's SIS ID, or student ID, as it appears in your student information system. It's very important that this ID remains the same every time you upload rostering information for the student, since this is how Literably ensures that the student's historical assessment data remains attached to that student. In column B, I'm going to enter the student's grade level. This can be K or a number between 1 and 12. Next, we'll enter the student's first and last names. As a reminder, if your district or school took part in a free trial with Literably and you would like for students' existing assessment data to transfer over, you want to make sure that the names and grade levels you use are identical to how they currently appear on the teacher's dashboard. Next, I'm going to use column E to assign the student to a teacher. Here, I'm going to enter the teacher ID for the teacher I want the student to appear under. To do this, I'll need to refer back to the teacher.csv file I've just completed. I want to assign Seamus to Mr. Gryffindor. So I'm going to look up his teacher ID, which is 10456, and enter that here. Now I've completed columns A through E, which are the required fields. But let's take a look at the remaining fields in the spreadsheet. In column F, I have the option of assigning a student to a second teacher by entering the teacher's ID here. This might be useful if there are co-teachers or if there's an additional staff member who works regularly with the student. Seamus does not have a second teacher, so I'm going to leave this blank. Columns G and H are used to assign a unique username and password for the student to log in. If your school only plans to use the drop-down menu method of logging in for students, you can leave these columns blank. If you would like for students to be able to log in using usernames and passwords as well, you would enter those credentials here. Let's move on to columns I and J. These two columns allow you to set an initial assessment level for your students based on existing data you may have. For example, if you have baseline F&P data for your students, you can enter their levels in column I. This will populate the next assessment column of the teacher dashboard. You can enter data from other assessment systems as well. Please see the article below this video for more details. If you don't include any initial levels, Literably will assign the lowest level that matches the student's grade for any students who have not yet taken any Literably assessments. If you've entered an initial level in column I, then column J can be used to indicate whether that level is treated as a floor. If you leave column J blank, Literably will treat the initial level as a floor and not re-level the student below that level, regardless of their assessment results. If you enter true, Literably will treat the initial level as a guess and allow the student to be re-leveled lower, depending on their scores. Finally, in columns K and L, you can specify the English language learner status for a student. If a student is in L, enter true in column K and then enter the home language code in column L. Literably uses the California state home language codes, which can be found below in this article. Our student Seamus has the home language Spanish, so I'm going to enter 1 here. If you have L information available, we encourage you to provide it so that Literably can apply accent filters for certain languages, which helps to prevent students from being overly penalized for pronunciation differences due to accents. There are more details about this in the article below. Let's now add all the students to this spreadsheet, double-check the data, and save this file in the same folder as the teachers.csv file. Okay, now that the two files have been filled out, we're ready to upload them to Literably. Let's first double-check that my two files are saved in the CSV format and that they have these exact names, teachers.csv and students.csv. Next, I'll need to log into my Literably account. Once I'm logged in, I'll go to my email in the top right corner and click on Rostering. If you don't see the rostering option here, please reach out to your contact at Literably. Once I've opened the rostering pop-up window, I'm going to select both the teacher and student files to upload. On a PC, I'll use the Control key, and on a Mac, I'll use the Command key to highlight both files. Once I press Submit, I should see a message that tells me if the files are in the process of uploading. Within a few minutes, I'll receive a notification email from Literably. If the upload was successful, the email will start with the words Successful Rostering Report. If there were problems, I'll receive an email that says errors were encountered while rostering. I would need to correct the errors listed and re-upload both the teacher and student CSV files to Literably. After the spreadsheets upload successfully, you should be able to check back in your Literably account to see that the teachers are listed and their students appear on their dashboards. When their accounts are created, teachers and students do not receive any notifications from Literably with their login credentials, so you may need to provide teachers and possibly students with their usernames and passwords. We have some email templates in the Literably Help Center that may help with this. Now let's pretend that a couple of months have gone by and you have some rostering changes that you need to make. There have been some staffing changes and you need to move a student to a different class. I'm going to show you how to make these rostering changes. First, I'm going to find the most recent versions of the teacher and student files I uploaded to Literably, which I've saved in a folder. Let's open up the teacher's CSV file and make a change to the teacher list. Mr. Severus Snape has left the school and has been replaced by Miss Pomona Sprout. To make this change, I'm going to delete the row that contains Mr. Snape's information. Then in a new row, I'm going to add Miss Sprout's information, making sure to use her unique teacher ID. When I'm done, I'll save this file. Let's now open up the student's CSV file. If you ever need to add a newly enrolled student to Literably or remove a student who has left, you would just need to make those changes in the same way we just did with the teacher file. To add a student, insert a new row with the student's information. To delete a student, remove that student's row from the spreadsheet. If a student has switched classes, I will need to assign him to the correct teacher so that the teacher can see the student on her dashboard. To do this, I just need to update the teacher ID in column E. Let's assign Ron Weasley to a new teacher by changing this teacher ID to 10678. This will move him onto Ms. Poppy Pomfrey's Literably dashboard. Now that I've made all the necessary rostering changes, I'm going to save the files and upload both files to Literably from my account. Even if I've only made changes to one file, it's best practice to always upload both files each time. Once the upload is complete and I receive the notification email, I'll double check that the changes went into effect. I'll also need to let Ms. Sprout know that her account has been created and provide her with instructions for logging into Literably. One last note about making rostering changes. If a new student needs to be added to a teacher's dashboard in Literably, please remind teachers not to add the student manually using the blue Add Students button at the top of their dashboard, as this is likely to lead to duplicate accounts for students. New students should be added by the school rosterer using the CSV files. We hope this video was helpful at clarifying some of the steps in the rostering process. Please consult the Help Center article for step-by-step directions and reach out to support@literably.com if you have any further questions.